Do you ever feel stuck, like you're living your life on autopilot? Are you ready to shift into high gear and reach the success you so richly deserve? Welcome to the Play Big Movement podcast. I am your host, Sharon Lechter, entrepreneur, business strategist, and best-selling author. Playing big is not about settling for good enough or being comfortable. It is about reaching your highest potential and achieving your greatest success. Join me in my Play Big movement as I interview top experts in business, money, and entrepreneurship, all ready to serve you and to help you play big, be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. Welcome, everybody, to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. And I'm very excited today because we're going to be talking about the future of women. And one of the greatest champions for women today is Wendy Howell, and she's my guest today. She's the Chief of Staff of the Technical Product Services Product Management of Cisco Systems. I know that's a mouthful, but she's responsible for over $10 billion in annual sales. So she has a tremendous responsibility, and yet she makes sure she takes the time to be a champion for women. So Wendy, thank you so much for being with me today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm beyond honored and thrilled. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Well, I met you because you stepped up to the plate when we brought Think and Grow Rich for Women to Austin. Mm-hmm. First one says, I'm here, I want to support it. And so she brought Cisco in as one of our major sponsors. And so I thank you for that. And I'm thrilled to have that opportunity to meet you and to get to know you a little bit. So I'm just so honored to have you as a friend. In fact, you came and visited in Arizona a couple of months ago with your family. So I had a chance to share a big breakfast with you.
A fabulous breakfast too, by the way. I love that place.
Yeah, it was a new find for me, and I've lived here for a long time. So it was fun. But excellent. Wendy, I want, you you're a young woman that has an incredible success story of your own. So share a little bit about the story of Wendy for me.
Sure. I think I've had quite the unconvenal path into the role that I'm at right now. Fun fact, if you will, I actually started my career in retail as a store director for Toys R Us.
Oh,
so completely random, completely outside of the technology world, but spent some great time there learning about the retail industry and getting to sort of move around a little bit as we opened new markets. That was great. I certainly knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to do forever. That's the time at which you hate Christmas if you work in retail, especially at Toys R Us. So I'm happy to say I'm back to loving Christmas, but I knew since I was a little girl that I wanted to live on the West Coast. I just knew I wanted to live in California, and no particular reason. I just thought it was really cool. I did end up moving to California. I was still in retail at the time, but as soon as I landed, I realized if I want to sort of play big, if you will, in this world, I really need to get into technology. I need to be in technology. Without a technical background, of course, that seemed a bit daunting. And, truth be told, I actually started my career in technology at a company called Octel, answering phones at the help desk. That's quite literally how I went into it, making very little money, etc. But just sort of the tenacity of Wendy, I think, and wanting to do bigger things within the world of technology. I quite literally just worked my way up through various roles at that company, then moving on to a startup company, ultimately into Symantec Veritas, becoming a director, doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions, again, not having any background in that whatsoever, and then moving over to Cisco with mergers and acquisitions and into this chief of staff role. So it really, I would call it stubbornness, hard-headedness, tenacity, and not being afraid to just define your role and not being afraid to go, I have no idea what this role is about or what I'm doing, but let's try it. Why not? that's a bit of a philosophy with my career and how I've lived my life. And that's how I ended up with Cisco. And that's, my goodness, 20 plus years probably now in technology. So I am old. I am older than what you portrayed me to be.
Well, I want to point out to everybody that is listening and watching this that she said, why not? And those of you that know me, that's a kind of a personal mantra of mine. Why not do something different? Why not take the road less traveled? And it really is, tenacity, perseverance, whatever it takes. All of those things are attributes that I think all of us who have found a level of success have had to have a lot of tenacity and perseverance to wade through it. But I think it's really admirable, and that you went after positions even when you didn't think you had the background, but you said, I can do this, and you found the resources and the education, and you obviously have done a fantastic job, because I would say you're probably one of the top women in technology in America today.
That is a huge compliment. But I will say, I think another big piece of it for me personally, and how I sort of navigate through life, is I am insanely and insatiably curious. That was one of the things that really drew me to mergers and acquisitions, quite frankly, in that I love things that are always different. The day is different each day. And I love a holistic view of getting to know every single solitary piece of the business a little bit. I mean, you may not be an expert in every piece of it, but that time that I spent in M&A really, really encouraged me to look across businesses holistically. And once again, M&A, no background. A VP came to me and said, hey, we're going to acquire a company. Do you want to do it? Sure. Why not? I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll give it a try. So I guess that's my theme, right?
Well, I love that. Why not? And then you also talked about that you're curious. And so in an earlier podcast, I talked about how as children we're curious and creative, and then we end up getting into school and we are taught a certain level of conformity, which is important, but sometimes our curiosity and our creativity starts getting stifled. We get out into a career and we get comfortable, and then we get complacent, and then something happens in our life like chaos or a crisis that throws us into chaos, and the way we get out of it is to be creative and curious again. And so as a parent, I talk to parents and make sure you continue stimulating your children's curiosity and creativity. So, this is, it was as if I choreographed this conversation with the why not and the curious and creativity. I think is something from an entrepreneurial perspective, that wanting to solve a problem or serve a need comes from imagination, curiosity, creativity.
Absolutely.
I think this is fantastic. So tell me a little bit and share with our listeners and our viewers about your program that you're doing for young girls.
Oh, fabulous. Where do I start? You might notice that I have a little bit of high energy, and known for that as well. Interestingly enough, Sharon, my history of being involved in nonprofit, quite frankly, started only after moving to Austin, which we moved here from the Silicon Valley about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. My previous endeavors in supporting nonprofits was to write a check and say, here, thank you very much, or buy the cookies, or whatever that was. But something sparked in me when I learned about an organization called Girls in Tech. I had seen it on a Cisco TV show, and I went, wow, I don't know about this organization, but I need to learn because it is amazing. Started 10 years ago by a young lady who is a rock star, an absolute rock star. Walked into her first technology company in the Bay Area outside of school and said, wow, I'm the only woman in a company of 100 people. Why is that? So, I mean, fast forward 10 years, she started a nonprofit known as Girls in Tech, which is now 62 chapters globally and 120,000 plus members globally.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to, just out of curiosity, attend one of their conferences. I was able to meet her. At that same time, I realized that 2 of Cisco's VPs were there and were on the board. So, I immediately marched right over and introduced myself. What else can we do with this organization? And they had been trying to do a global partnership, and that we're having some challenges with funding. And as Wendy is known to do, I'm like, well, let's just fix that, and let's go fund this, and let's do a global partnership. So there's sort of that piece of it, the Cisco side, and we sponsor just numerous events. The organization is focused on education, empowerment, enablement, and entrepreneurship, really all throughout technology. And I think the unique thing about the nonprofit, it is not, I also happen to be the managing director of the Austin chapter. And whilst the organization has a number of programs, you design your chapter as you see fit. So one of the areas that we focused on here in Austin is really around, I'll call it that upper middle school, high school age group, because oftentimes that is where we notice that girls start to maybe change, sort of fall out of the STEM focus areas, etc. And we're thrilled to support. I call it all things girl. It's really, Girls in Tech is one of many passions, but we're huge supporters of Girl Scouts of Central Texas and Survive to Thrive organization, the Kindness Campaign, which is anti-bullying here locally. And so that's sort of my whole journey into it. And as I came into this, I went, how did I never do this before? This is what I was born to do, this passion of really connecting people and connecting with nonprofits to really give back, to the community, for as lucky as many of us have been. That's sort of my journey there.
But it is truly, when you talk about giving back, you can give back financially, like you said, write a check, or with your time and talent. And you've done all three. So that's something that when we talk about the Play Big movement, we're talking about being number one in your field. Well, you certainly have done that. Living your legacy, well, your legacy is giving back and supporting girls in tech and creating maximum impact. And certainly you are living the life of the Play Big movement. And I want to acknowledge you for that. You also, you're paving the way for your own daughter, right? You have a teenager.
That's correct. I have actually just turned 14, 14-year-old young lady who we lovingly say is 14 going on 40 or 45. She is an only child, and she's quite mature, quite sardonic, and just thriving in tennis, thriving in school. She's really happy actually that we moved here to Austin. So to be, to be a role model for her, it'll give me a lump in my throat, but for her, in the car the other day went, I'm so proud of you, Mom, and everything that you're doing. It's pretty amazing. And you're a parent. I mean, there's nothing that you could ask for that means more than that.
That's really special. And that's something that everybody listening probably, if your child at that age, so usually at that age, they're telling you what's wrong with you. So that's pretty special.
Oh, shit. Well, don't worry. There's some of that as well. Trust me. Mom, it's very funny, Sharon. I'm married to an introvert, and my daughter is also an introvert. And as you can probably tell, I'm quite introverted myself, not. So there's always this really interesting balance between the three of us. I'm ready to go, and hey, we just came home from this event. Let's go do this. And, they want to go to their rooms respectively and read or, something like that. So it's fun. It's a great balance. And we all make fun of our own idiosyncrasies, I'll call it.
So what's next in the chapter for Wendy? What are your own personal aspirations?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I am, I'm at a point where I'm wondering, what is the next thing? Is the next thing that I go off and, come up with a strategy to exit out of Cisco and do something in nonprofit full time? Do I come up with a strategy to, start my own business? I mean, I may come off as I'm not afraid of anything, but I'm very fearful of that idea of the next step, because I don't know what it is. I don't see myself retiring at Cisco when I'm 80. So my power of being here in the Austin community and I think my superpower is connections and connecting people and organizations. So I'm really sort of, quite frankly, thinking through that. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but I do think that it's something that is more in the, really just doing much more of the give back side of the equation and being much more involved in that community. And it's incredibly powerful here in Austin. I think I'm not poo-pooing the Bay Area. I've lived there for 20 years, but it's just it's a different vibe and a different feel here, comparatively speaking.
I can certainly attest to that. I think, Austin has
Yes.
been it's an incredible community, and certainly a lot of philanthropy and
Mhm.
people willing to actually take action, not just write the check, but to, be of service to others. So
Exactly. And one of the things that we've done here, I'm looking around at what I've done with Girls in Tech, and I have friends from several other nonprofits that I've mentioned, and I have a lot of friends in tech. And I was brainstorming with the founder of Survive to Thrive organization, and I went, I'm doing all this stuff, you're doing your stuff, they're doing their stuff. Why? How about the power of partnerships and better together? How about if we all come together and create, for lack of a better word, we're just calling it the coalition. And it's a group of folks in technology and a group of leaders and board members in nonprofits. And we're now getting together just about once a month. It's very new, it's very fresh, to say, okay, here's what we're doing with Girls in Tech. We need X. Someone else, we're doing this with the kindness campaign, and we need a sponsor for this or a speaker. And we're really just trying to pull together a broader community here to see what else we can do and how we can be more effective and be more powerful or impactful, to your point earlier, together. So that's a nice focus area right now as well, which is a newer.
That absolutely is the power of collaboration. And we talk about how important that is for the future of business, but not just business in the nonprofit world. And one of the things that I teach a lot when I talk about the personal success equation is that power of association. And so share how that power of association has helped you be successful in your career, and what your recommendations are for people out there that are looking and say, wow, she runs a $10 billion revenue opportunity. And, and she started off without the technical background. And so that power of association and really that tenacity and power of association. So discuss a little bit about that.
Sure. I personally think for me, the single most important skill set that I have honed in my lifetime is the power of networking and the power of connections. At every business that I've ever been involved with, it has, the ability to go out, introduce yourself to someone from another group, from another team, from another organization. That not only increases your general knowledge of the business overall, but it gets your name and your reputation out there. And to me, that's the most important thing that you can possibly do. And I believe that wholeheartedly, both in business and external to business, as I'm learning here in the Austin community, and being able to do the connections between various organizations, and everyone gets, it's almost concentric circles, Sharon. You've got this circle, which is maybe your close business associates, and then you go one concentric circle out, and that adds more power and more connections, and one concentric circle out, etc. So that is really, besides tenacity and life, being a lifelong learner, always curious, etc. I just think being able to connect with other people, other businesses, other organizations, that's priceless. It's power, I think.
Well, that's exciting, and it absolutely is true, because that's, we can be tenacious, we can take action, but all that stuff is, we're only as effective as our own sphere. And so if we can increase our sphere of influence through the power of association, through that networking, then we have a greater opportunity to discover new opportunities. When we keep ourselves kind of within our own personal sphere, those opportunities can go right by us. So it's important to listen to all of these steps, because other people that I've had on the podcast have said similar things through different filters, but at the end of the day, we're all responsible for the choices we've made. Each of us is where we are today because of the choices we've made before today. So if you want to make different choices, listen to people like Wendy, who has really created that track record of success, and now you're making sure you've opened the door for other people behind you. And I think that's important, because I'm the generation ahead of you. So when a lot of people when I was coming up were saying women weren't very good to each other. Once they reached a certain level of success, they weren't helping other women. They were almost like keeping them patted down. So we're seeing that change, and we're seeing that environment change because women are being supportive of other women, just exactly like what you're doing. And you also lead the group within Cisco for women's group, right?
That is correct. There's a couple different spheres there. So one is Cisco Connected Women, which is our largest employee resource organization. So I head up I co-manage the one here in Austin, and I'm very active in the one in San Jose as well, because a large part of our team, and again, our team is small but mighty, I like to say, but a large part of our team is in San Jose. So I'm out there relatively often. And then within my own organization, I just started a group called WATS. It is completely informal. It's Women of TS. And the sole purpose is for me to bring people in from within Cisco, from outside of Cisco, from various different verticals. And I have them come in, and there's no set agenda. It's come in and tell your story to everyone in my team. And that's everyone from someone who is an executive assistant, an administrative assistant, up to a senior director level. It's completely open. And that's how I've intentionally designed it, because I don't think access to amazing women and speakers like yourself should be, only for the cool kids or only for those that have, grizzled and been around for a long time. I just think it's so powerful to give that opportunity to everyone. And we've had data scientists, we've had doctors, we've had folks that run a healthcare fund. I mean, just all over the board. And it's really fun. It's really interesting as well. For me personally also.
No, that's fantastic. So it's Women of Tech?
Women of TS, so Women of Technical Services.
Okay, Wonderful. That's excellent. I was not aware of that. So that's, again, when you're successful, part of that success is also a responsibility to give back. And Wendy, you're just such a perfect example of that. And so this podcast is going to come out to my entire audience, but we're going to close off this podcast in a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to have you stay on the line, because we're going to do a couple of more private conversations that will be in the Play Big Movement private Facebook.
The private room.
It's a little sneak preview. So those of you listening, please share this with your networks, because Wendy's given us tremendous value today. But also make sure you're a member of the Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter Facebook group, because we have more, and we're going to be coming up that in a minute. So Wendy, how if people want to find out more about what you do and your Women in Tech, how can they find you?
Easy. Probably I'm less active on Facebook. I'm trying to become better at that. At Wendy Howell 711 on Twitter. I'm quite active on Twitter, and it's Wendy Howell and Facebook as well. Those are the two. I'm not allowed to be on, what's the one the kids use today? Snapchat. My daughter told me I'm too old, so I don't touch that. And on Instagram, I just don't have time. It's like, okay, so Facebook and Twitter, those are my two places to find me. Or come and see me in Austin and do something magical and amazing with us here in Austin. It's a great place to visit, as you are well aware, Sharon.
Well, thank you so much. And I think for all of those listening and watching, I think this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your pearls of wisdom. I love it. Tenacity, why not? All right. Being creative. Those are so, it's a pathway to success. Continue to challenge yourself and know that you can achieve and do anything that you set your mind out to. And so thank you so much, Wendy, for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this segment of the Play Big Movement podcast. Please subscribe to iTunes and leave us a review, as well as join us in other areas of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Sharon Lechter, and for Facebook, author Sharon Lechter. Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.